Oh yeah, there are a couple seats up front still, I think. Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here for the first night in our 2026 May reading series. Really thrilled to have you here. I want to start with a reminder that we're meeting on the lands of the Duwamish, Suquamish, and Muckleshoot nations and other Coast Salish peoples, past and present. And the staff, board, and artists of Jack Straw acknowledge that we're living, creating, working, and playing on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle and the Salish Sea, and we honor them and the land itself with deep gratitude. And I feel like I always say this, but I do feel an immense sense of gratitude just standing here in this place with these people and with the work that you're all about to hear. So again, thank you for being here. Yeah. And thank you to our curator, Claudia Castro Luna, who will be joining us in just a moment. We do receive funding for this program and our other artist residency programs. We have 3, the Artist Support Program, the New Media Gallery Program, and the Writers Program, and those are supported by City of Seattle Office of Arts and Culture, For Culture, Washington State Arts Commission, the NEA, Arts Fund, and individual contributors. We do appreciate all manner of individual contribution, and for those of you who were able to give tonight, we really appreciate it. If you're online, you can just go to our website and click donate, and you can probably find a way to donate. Actually, on that note, I should mention that Tuesday, you may have heard as Give Big. If you're on any email lists of any nonprofits, you've probably heard 10 million times that Tuesday is Give Big. For that, we'll be supporting our donations will go to our youth educational programs, of which there are many, and we would really appreciate any support you can give on that day. But really, we just thank you for being here. And Claudia will talk a lot more about the program and what you're going to hear, so I will hand it off to our wonderful curator, Claudia Castro Luna. Give her a big hand.
Thank you, Levi, for that, and thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. This is a super, super exciting evening because this marks the 30th year that the Jack Straw Writers Program is in effect and that we have an anthology, one of 30. And that is a monumental thing for any nonprofit and for a program like this. I always say my favorite reading series in Seattle, and we have many, and they're wonderful, but I have such a special feeling for these 3 Fridays in May when we gather here and listen to the work that was produced for the anthology. So it is a huge honor for me as a former Jack Straw writer myself to then 12 years later be here as the curator. So I actually have remarks. So I will start up with my remarks. Buenas noches y bienvenidos a todos. Good evening and welcome to the 2026 Jack Straw May Writing Series. This year marks the 30th year of the Jack Straw Writing Program. This evening we welcome and celebrate the 12 amazing writers who make up the 2026 Jack Straw Writers Fellows. These writers are wonderfully diverse, and as a curator, I had the honor of selecting the cohort for this year, which is an incredible thing because, of course, it was an overwhelming task to reduce all of the applications, of which there were dozens, to only 12 writers. And it was a daunting task. So these writers are wonderfully diverse in their voices, in their forms of expression, cultural backgrounds, in their aesthetic orientations, in the expanse and arc of their personal experiences. In this sense, this year's writers truly honor Seattle's designation as UNESCO City of Literature. As you many know, we are one of 2 cities in the United States to have that designation from UNESCO. And I truly feel that the world is captured in these anthology pages, given just the breadth of experience and expertise and places of provenance from the writers who are gathered in the pages of the anthology. The writers also epitomize the caliber of writers who over the decades have been part of the Jack Straw Writers Program and who have gone on to publish many books of poetry and prose and been recognized locally and nationally. And this is really true. It's breathtaking to take a look at the catalog of writers who have come through Jack Straw, and you will see this is such a history-making moment when you begin to see through the years who has been in this very room sharing and reading and being part of the Jack Straw writers cohort of the tradition. I want to thank especially Joan Rabinovitz, Jack Straw's executive director, who is not here this evening, but I'm sure she's watching us. The year I was a writer for the first marathon session, when everybody shows up and meets everybody else, and Levi guides us through the massive years-long, scheduling. The year I was there, where Levi is now standing, that's where Joan was, and she used to stand there and read and greet everybody as we came in. And so much of what Jack Straw is the vision and tenacity of Joan Rabinowitz. To Levi Fuller for his impeccable support of this year's writers and for managing all aspects of the anthology publication and so much more. I want to thank Sherwin Eng, who photographed the writers for this year's postcard, which I have here, which is absolutely beautiful. And I actually think this is now an iconic artifact of the city's literary life, because Jack Straw has not changed this format forever. And at one point you think, aren't we gonna, I'm actually on the board of Jack Straw as well, so aren't we gonna change that? And then there was a moment where I thought, why? It's perfect. And all of them look, at one point they were black and white, now they're in color, that's a change. But they're just fantastic. I really do think they're a little bit of an artifact of our literary life in this amazing literary city. So let me see. So thank you, Sherwin, for capturing everyone so beautifully. A huge thanks to Aisha Ubayatilaka, who is here tonight recording and who has been with us recording and such a presence throughout this whole process. To Tony Williams and Zeus Green, who were the 3 engineers who recorded our podcasts, which will be available early in the summer, I think, Levi, right? Summer, sometime in the summer. Carlos Nieto is producing those, so be on the lookout for them. Those were really wonderful conversations that I was able to have with each one of the writers, and they were wide-ranging conversations, I have to say, and it was really inspiring to be able to have that deep, and focused time with writers. And Carlos is wonderful, so I'm looking forward to listening to his editing of those conversations. Thank you to Sunam Ellis, this year's vocal coach, and to Elizabeth Austin, who herself is a Jack Straw writer from 2003 and a former Washington State Poet Laureate, and she was this year's performance coach. Thank you to Daniel Gunter, who's in the room, and Aisha, who are recording and engineering tonight's program. Tonight, of course, we hear the first part of the anthology, the first 4 writers, Gabriela Garcia, Ruth Marie Tomlinson, Regina Fountain, and Maya Marino. I have the privilege of ordering the pieces in the anthology. So tonight's 4 writers, it's interesting. It's interesting when you are in the company of writers, and particularly poets, I find this. There is some convergence that happens every time. And there was a convergence this year around particular themes, in particular the opening 4 writers in whose writing water is really prominent. So I want you to hear in these pieces a dialogue with water. Water as memory, as place, as dream, as bridge, as holder of ancestors' voices, and as a current that connects us to ourselves and to places yonder, where we only see with our third eye, a different color maybe, a trace of a feeling maybe, a hushed knowing. So first, we have Gabriela Garcia. Gabriela writes mostly within two genres, poetry and libretto. Her libretto for the chamber opera A Spring Like This is a collaboration with composer Nehemiah Jones. Gabriela wrote that libretto with the support of the Seattle Opera, Jane Lang Davis Creation Lab, and the Peace Centers on the Chestnut Blight, which, as many of you know, was a fungus which infected and killed an estimated 4 billion American chestnut trees over 60 years. And reading Gabriela's materials really struck a chord as I read through all of the applications. It is a beautiful libretto, and I am so thankful to have you open the anthology. This is from Gabriela herself. These are her words. The more I create, the more I understand that everything I write is a love poem. When I write about memory and belonging, I'm writing about love. When I write about nature and its many intersections, love is at the core. Most of my work intertwines history and language with the environment. So I often ask myself, how do we love the land now? How can we love the land better? So let us welcome Gabriela reading her anthology contribution, Topographies.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Claudia, for that introduction. It's been such a gift to be a part of this program, and I especially want to thank Ruthie and Maya and Rashina. It's been such a pleasure to work with you all to prepare for this reading. My project for the anthology is called Topographies, and it's a series of map poems. Each of my poems is overlaid on topographic maps of mountains and rivers that kind of are the core of, or the place in which the poem takes place. So the first one I wanted to share this evening is called Pete's Moon Down. Pete's Moon Down is the name of the mountain my grandfather grew up on. And this poem is a love letter to him, to the mountain, and also a little bit to the Nickelodeon TV show Avatar: The Last Airbender. So. Pete's Moon Down. We walked unabashedly and in the wrong language to the wide fountain where, for centuries, women gathered to wash the household's clothes, linens, details. Our recent obsession was bending the elements, all aspiring to move water with our minds. Mirit, our leader, our bending master, called out push and pull, and we swished the current in little waves, yelling, "It's happening, I've done it," at the stream's smallest independence. It's here I imagine him, with his mother washing socks beside the others. Was she a gossip? Shy, scrunching underclothes in her fists? Or so at ease with the elderly, kissing their cheeks with wet hands? All I know of her is that he loved her, and then she died. He loved her, and then he died. But when she wrung out his mittens, where did that rivulet go? To the air again? Then down, down mountain, down river, frozen, melted beneath and rising. In the springs that feed the spout, where does one droplet end and the other begin? Is the fountain's water, which we drank from, is my water, his water, her water? Was it the same water lapping at my palms with push and pull when I could feel that magic from my fingertips? I swear I moved that water. I swear. Thank you. As a part of this project, on the same map, or the same map poem, I also have like a key or a legend to the map, but instead of, showing colors and different aspects of what the map is trying to say, it's an erasure poem in the form of a haiku, which is the center or the heart of the poem. So this first one is a key to the poem Pete's Moondown. The centuries gather us in her fists, kiss their palms and my fingertips. I wanted to bring us down south a little bit. I was raised in the desert. I'm from Arizona, the Sonoran Desert. And whenever I read, I like to bring the desert with me a little bit because I find it to be very grounding. And also, even though I've lived in the Pacific Northwest for almost 4 years now, I think the desert takes up a large space in my mind. And I'm always thinking about the lack of water and the abundance of water in the desert and how different that is from the place I live now. So this poem is titled Hunger. Some years ago, no, recently, the saguaros all fell over and the agave collapsed on themselves. The ocotillo endured, spinly, looking over their shoulder with a piercing scowl. Thin as a line, they'll make it through drought, flash flood. Treacherous desert, when I am good, I will be so full there will be no more room, and all the water will leak out of me. Thank you. Okay, now I wanted to bring us back to the Pacific Northwest for a little while. It's been such a gift to live here. I love Seattle. And I think since moving here, like the abundance of water everywhere is just like, it amazes me constantly. Water in all directions. And I find myself writing about it all the time. And actually, and in doing this program and being paired with Ruthie and Rashina and Maya, I was thinking about, wow, actually, like water is a big theme in my work, and I didn't realize it at all. And I looked like in my master Google Doc of all of my work, and I like looked how many times I had written the word water, and it was like almost 150. And I was like, I need a thesaurus probably. But also, it's kind of cool to see yourself more clearly. So I feel grateful for that too. Waiting at Lake Washington. Carry my dress at the breast like a baby. Say, Bellevue looks farther from the middle. The lake, she widens. Squeeze algae for mermaids who knit cardigans and kick up sediment. Clarity lapping at the hip bone. Meet a wall of water weeds, black in the water, blue. Ask me for evidence, so I become see-through, kiss you. You widening, you rippling to shore. And in your bed, in your bathing suit, you, how lake-like, you. I wanted to bring us over to Green Lake. I'm Venezuelan American, and I wrote this poem in January after Nicolas Maduro was unlawfully kidnapped by our government. And I think I've been wanting to write more about the purpose of citizenship and what it means to be a citizen, and also about shame and how if we're not careful, we can betray ourselves. Yeah. A week into the new year, Seattle has a foggy day, and I don't have anything beautiful to say about it. When it evaporates into the afternoon, I get off work early and walk down to the lake with my extra orange. I sit in the sun because isn't that what you're supposed to do by the water with a waxy rind, taking back your time? Dad calls, and we talk about the president of Colombia, the mango tree he climbed in Caracas before they moved, and the end of Dune Part 2, when Paul betrays himself, or forgets himself, or is no longer himself. How terrible must we be before we become someone new? Is it fate or desire that brought us here? I don't tell him I'm thinking about carrying a copy of my birth certificate in my winter coat. I like to think of myself as a good person, but really, I prefer to sit on the dock during citrus season and not feel bad about anything. Goodness is an action, and Paul knows exactly who he is. He prides himself in his sense of justice. In poetry, they told me, don't name it, but I have to say it outright, okay? The worst thing, really the worst, was my first thought. Don't worry, don't worry. I was born here. When I moved to Seattle, I didn't know that the big one was a thing. And then I moved here and I found out and I was like, wow, okay, good to know. And I think that like climate anxiety is just a thing that we all live with. And so I've been writing a series of poems kind of in response to my own anxiety that are like really short cinquains, just whenever they come to me. So this is just a couple excerpts from that series. And then after that, I want to end with one more piece from the anthology. So this is called Waiting for the Big One. 1. David shows me how to skip pebbles. Mine hop 5. Dad's 6. The sea gulps. She ripples. She cheers. 2. Over pasta, Dad says, they found mammoths in the Arctic, pushed by human hunters, warming. All their relatives on the mainland, gone. Years passed, stranded. He laughs. Please don't let me be last. 3. I spend a green summer watching 30-second videos I won't remember at all. 4. We sit at the salty sound, talk of earthquake kits, romance novels, the end of love, swimsuits. The sound watches, watery-eyed, and says, jump into me, just jump. We don't trust her just yet. Thank you. So this is my last poem. It's also in the anthology, and it's kind of a different style for me. I kind of wanted to capture the nature of dreams, and it follows a conversation between my parents that actually happened. And I'm going to follow it again with the erasure poem, Key. Thank you again so much for being here. It's really a gift to be here. Mom dreams of swimming in the Ara. It was cold. I forgot my bathing suit, so I went in my clothes. That milky river, a sun who won't admit she rises. When I return from walking, my key in the cold lock frightens my father. Mom, still in bed. No, it wasn't the Ara, it was the Vorderrhein. Milky River, the color of memory as you dip your ear to it. I stand alone in the kitchen with the lights off as Dad slips back between the covers. Is it safe to swim? That water's rough. Yeah, but we swam. It was nice. Milky water, the color of rivers that don't hurt us. That's a really great dream. It was over quickly. The color of waking up. Key to mom dreams of swimming in the Ara. Isn't it memory you slip back to? Rough water. Don't. Wake up. Thank you.
I think we need another round of applause for that. Milky water, the color of rivers that don't hurt us. That's a great dream. That's a really great dream. The color of waking up. I love that. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful reading. And thank you for, I know Gabriela has a very important event later on today, so thank you for being here too and helping us keep the order of the anthology. I appreciate your time. So our next reader is Ruth Marie Tomlinson. Born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, Ruth Marie, or Ruthie if I may, carries within herself the shapes, forms, the terrain of this part of the world. She has also spent much time in central Montana, so that the open skies, the montañas, or mountains, the expansive horizon have also seeped into her being. Ruthie writes that, quote, living in two places, Seattle, Washington, and Two Dot, Montana, one place is always here while the other one becomes there. She goes on, I've continued a consideration of the pull between commitments as well as the transition from one to the other. Where do I belong? What changes? What remains? What is remembered? What is forgotten? What happens in between? Ruthie's contribution to the anthology is a lyrical, creative, nonfiction investigation of place. In particular, how we come to understand ourselves in relationship to the places we inhabit. How tracing, backtracing, retracing a familiarly traveled route, for example, retraveling and retracing it with a kind of awareness or a purposeful curiosity may steer interior landscapes, snap understandings, reframe historical notions. In Ruthie's own words, quote, the project is curious about occupying the actual space of transition while getting to know what lies between here and there, to understand the place in between as a place in itself. I love that. To understand the place in between as a place in itself. And Ruthie's proposal to Jack Straw was to continue writing into this work that she had started. So what is in the anthology is a continuation of a larger work. So let us welcome Ruthie with her contribution. If I could, I would swim the Columbia. Thank you. Welcome, Ruthie. Thank Thank you, Claudia. I feel like I don't have to introduce this now. That's great. Thanks to Jack Straw for this opportunity. It's really quite remarkable and incredible. And I also want to say, as Gabriela did, it's been such a treat to be working with this foursome that is reading tonight. I didn't know so many people were writing about water. And I feel, Gabriela, after listening to you, were we sitting next to each other when we wrote? What was happening? Yeah, it was very, very nice. So thank you. And thanks, everyone, for being here. So many nice, familiar faces. True, I live in Seattle and Tudor, Montana. And this work started when I really did try to understand what's going on. Why? I have been in the Pacific Northwest, the misty greens, the watery everything, the salty sea. That's my core. But I found as I started to go to Montana regularly that the waves of grass and the big sky was starting to take residence in here. Almost like a homecoming. And I was like, why does this feel like a homecoming? I'm really leaving my home to go here. So I've been looking at that. I started writing, honestly, I just realized on the way here that this work started with my visual art work at Jack Straw when I did an installation called Lost Long. And I was thinking about the here and there. And it's that whole idea and thinking has come with me on my journey into writing. So here we are. It began with an exploration of place. And I started to look, I love this place, and what is going on in between? And somehow in that process, it's been some years, I was writing and just without thinking, I wrote, if I could, I would swim from here to there. It's like, can you do that? And I've been spending years figuring out how you would do that. So I've planned a route, it's all rivers. Of course, you have to do some imagining in how you swim once you hit the top of a pass. I don't know how I would do that, but I'll figure it out. I wasn't going to tell this, but I will tell it. My very creative stepsister said, couldn't you just get like a flatbed truck with a hot tub on the back of it? And when the river runs out, you just get in the hot tub and you go over the pass. I was like, thanks. Maybe that's the way. Anyway, I thought this would be an exploration of place, that I would really just be looking into place. And I discovered very quickly it was about my relationship to place and how I fit in place. The long work is at this moment called Reroute, an Imagined Memoir. It is about swimming rivers and swimming from west to east. I'm going to read from two chapters, little excerpts, and they follow the format that's established in the entire document, or the entire, wow, that sounded so academic, the manuscript. It includes field notes that I write next to the river, and letters, love letters, if you will, to the river, and also a kind of outside overview voice that looks at this journey that I'm on. So this is from the first chapter, and this one will take that overview format. Chapter's called One River to Another, Cedar to Yakima. She begins at the beginning. She began to learn specific rivers, the rivers she would follow from the Pacific Northwest to the high plains of Montana in a retrace of her family's journey, a settler's journey, Musselshell to the sea. She would reverse that route, but where exactly would she begin?
Her Pacific Northwest love of water had always meant leaving the city, west to salt water, east to fresh water tumbling from the mountains, salt water slapping the shore, wave after wave. If she'd been asked, where do these two meet, she probably could have given a textbook answer. But in truth, it had been a disassociated place for her. A place unrecognized in ship canals, under bridges, in culverts and drainages. She began her search in the usual way, opening Google Maps, and occasionally a paper map. It was there she discovered her ability to access the Cedar River simply by walking from her front door down to the lake, which was made of water flowing from the cedar. This was how her river route would begin. It was serendipitous, walking from her Seattle front door and swimming to a short walk from her Montana front door. She even thought it would be idyllic until she began to go to the river. It was at the river she began to see what had been done to the river. The Cedar had not always flowed into Lake Washington and through the Ship Canal and to the Salish Sea. The river had a different history. Her people, settlers, had been in the Pacific Northwest just a little more than 100 years, not long in river time. Even so, in that time, she discovered her people had irrevocably altered rivers and even lost rivers. She began to realize the potential of her route to be a recoiling, a rewinding of reactionary forward motion. Could she swim a route reversing the spirit of westward expansion that propelled her grandparents and great-grandparents west? This is from another chapter a little further in. The chapter is called A Northern Route, Yakima to Clark Fork. I got really confused when I hit the plateau. You know, once you go over the mountains and you hit Vantage, it's like, oh, which way do I go? Do I go south? Do I go north? How do I do this? So I ended up writing two routes. This one is the northern, and this section centers around Wenatchee. Dear River, I'm writing from my house to yours as a pen pal might, writing to someone I don't know well, wanting to communicate with someone I'm in awe of. So grand, so vast. I don't know how to locate myself in communication with you, but I want to. In the past, I lived near you, driving across your expanse on long bridges, but never going to your shores. Somehow you did not seem approachable. I cooled my feet in the creeks and rivers that run to you, Peshastin, Entiat, Icicle, Wenatchee. But you, Columbia, the gathering of all rain and melt and springs, the collector of every seep, rivulet, and creek, I ignored. In grade school, I sang Roll On Columbia with the rest of my class. It was nothing more than a song to me, a chance to sing rather than study. I want to say, I'm sorry I didn't see you in that song, but maybe that song doesn't hold meaning for you either. Do you even think of yourself as Columbia? Field notes. Confluent State Park, Wenatchee, February 19th, 2024. Behind a bulkhead, out of the wind, just a few yards from the river's edge, watching. The river, plucked by eagles, flanked by snow-covered hills on one side, beginnings of the desert on the other. We ended up living in this valley for a time, never once going to the Columbia's shore, never riding in a boat or floating on a raft, never dipping in a toe, much less full immersion. But here I am now. The river is as a lake between the restraint of dams, a wind-ripped surface. If I look to its center, I believe I can see an indication of river current, a journey toward the sea. It is probably only the wind, but my belief is real. Imagine a swimmer, head turning to one side, then to the other, elbow cocking back before arcing over that head as it turns, then the other side, again and again. Would the swimmer wear a safety-colored buoy? Would the swimmer be me? Gusts of dry leaves envelop my imagining, swirling all around me, covering the page so much that my pen pushes them out of the way with writing. When the gust abates, bits of dirt and sand remain on the page. Leaves have collected in my lap, in my pockets, around my open jacket zipper, as if I am a landscape. They also float in the river, a shore drift moving them in the direction I would swim, upriver to the source, upriver in a spit of breeze and current. Field notes, Wenatchee Riverfront Park, February 20th, 2024. Further downriver, standing a little higher, the current is easier to see. It runs slow, one reservoir to another, maybe only a mile an hour. Nevertheless, it would be something for a swimmer to contend with, undercurrents and reverse currents unseen. The strength required, more than I have. I exhaust myself imagining it, and yet, even in a weak winter sun, I feel the invitation. Swim, the river calls. Field notes, Apple Capital Recreation Loop Trail, East Wenatchee, February 21st, 2024. The east side of the river runs deeper. At its edge, I easily see through the water to a rocky bottom, but 4 feet offshore, the bottom drops out of sight, and all I see are eddies. What troubles the water just there? Is there something below that would pull at a swimmer? Grab an ankle and not let go? Even with a warm sun, it is cold in February. Snow on the surrounding hills make it seem even colder. It's hard to think of swimming. And one last love letter. Dear River, I walked in silence over you, felt your breadth from a height, 2 layered patterns crisscrossing your surface, current and wind. When I looked over the edge of the bridge through diamond mesh fencing, I felt a little dizzy. The added pattern shift? The height? Perhaps the dizziness was just part of being with you. I walked in silence over you, walked in silence along your shore, first one side and then the other. I did not dip my toes or fingers in. I did not toss a stone. I only collected with my eyes. I collected breeze on my face, the same breeze that brushed your body. At home again, I'm no longer recording the daily texture of your surface, glassy or whirled or wind-whipped, but I am remembering you. Now this letter, my way of talking with you, something I could not yet do in your presence, so large where they call you Columbia. once running fast and wild, now collected and wide. Was it your size or your history that tied my tongue? I walked in silence, not just mine, but yours. No splash, no rush, no rock tumble. I don't know your depth, but suspect that is where your voice resides, a voice old with memory. Are you angry? I have read of angry water, but it always refers to water flowing fast and wild. This is not what I'm talking about. Are you angry by way of what's been taken from you? Once you were a wild girl, all whoosh and tumble, froth and danger. You ran where you chose. Do you remember your youth? Do you relive your escapades? Who would have guessed that a girl such as you could be subdued? But money and power have rendered you placid. And yet, I see something of the girl in you still, something fast and furious, rebellion not quite yet dormant. If freed of constraints, what would you do? I saw the padlocks clipped into the protective diamond mesh on the bridge. Love-locked forever, so they say. For a minute, I wanted to add a lock with our names etched into it. Dear River, you and me, connected. But it's the wrong metaphor. I will always see you, wild and free, and I will never hold you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that reading. Can we give her another round of applause? Thank you. It was beautiful. Now, it struck me the moment in the reading when you talk about river as collector of other waters, of water seeping, of brooks and rills, and eventually the Entias, the Twisp, all of those rivers feeding into that Columbia. So this water collecting water, that is the river. And later in that passage, you say, I only collected with my eyes. That's so beautiful. Here, the viewer, the speaker doing the collecting, and this time just a visual collection of what she sees floating by on the river. I had not connected that myself in the reading of the piece in the anthology. I really love the part where you said, or you write, I walked in silence over you, walked in silence along your shore, first one side and then the other. I did not dip my toes or fingers in. I did not toss a stone. I only collected with my eyes. So thank you for that. You see what I mean about this amazing group of writers? So our next reader is Rashina Fountain. Rashina comes to writing with decades-long work in environmental advocacy and social justice. In her writing and academic work, she centers blues music, mood, and logics as a way to welcome communities traditionally left out of mainstream environmental advocacy and to present Black environmental relationships. Rashina's collection is, in her own words, quote, a Black queer woman's journey to find a version of home as a Chicagoan living in Seattle. And here again, the echoes of place and finding place, and how do we come to know ourselves as being part of a place reverberating within the writings that we have heard tonight. Rashida does this through tracing her family's migrations, reimagining environmental activism, and redefining her relationship to nature and place. So let us welcome Rashida Fountain.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to everyone, fellow Jack Straw writers, Claudia. Yeah, it's been an amazing experience and great to have those sessions practicing and getting feedback. So today what I'll be sharing is an excerpt from my memoir, Starfish Blues, and then poems that are in the anthology. So my poems are kind of short. My fellow Jack Straw writer said that my excerpt did a great job of kind of introducing the themes in my poems. So I'll share that. And so these writings represent my relationship to my histories and to place and the relearning of those relationships. So Starfish Blues, a memoir, and this piece is called "I'd Like to Free Black Exploration." And I'm gonna read a quote from Matthew Henson, author of A Negro Explorer at the North Pole, published in 1912. The lure of the Arctic is tugging at my heart. To me, the trail is calling, the old trail that is always new. I could feel Granddad wanted me to imagine life beyond the west side of Chicago that I had come to know. I felt this in the quality time he spent with me, allowing me to put hair barrettes and balls in his thinning dark brown and gray hair. I felt this when he made me runny eggs, or the times he took me by myself to see his side of the family's houses on the south and west sides, or on bank runs with him. In the times eating peanuts from the Peanut Man off the Eisenhower Expressway, as V103 hits and dusties played from the speakers in his cigarette-scented blue Buick LeSabre. Now, as a mother, I realize he probably saw time with me and all his grandkids as an escape from the systems, from the troubles in Austin, from painful past. Faith is often my escape, an opportunity to create worlds together without limitations we face in the world. Granddad was an involved grandfather. He cooked and cleaned and never saw me as an interruption, even when I interrupted his beer drinking time with him and his buddies in the alley for quarters to buy chips and candy. I knew where to find him, and he had no problem taking me with him. I think we're all looking for an escape or a way to a better version of freedom. As a child, I hid myself under a tough exterior, a persona I had perfected by the time I stepped foot into Henry Nash Elementary School. And when you're hiding or needing an escape, small windows sustain you and keep you from vanishing. For some reason, the photos of Henson and his story of braving the cold, icy terrain stuck with me. He has been one of the windows I've kept open throughout my life. I guess Black exploration is the answer to the question, how did you make it through all that? I believe nature shows with David Attenborough's voiceovers were a window for Granddad. Sitting with him on that lime green suede couch watching nature shows in our living room are joyful memories in our house on the west side in the 90s. Attenborough's voice became an invitation to join Granddad in glimpses of freedom. We transport ourselves to greener pastures, landscapes with animals running wild, so far away from where we sat as two dreamers in a concrete jungle. Everyone knows that nature shows was Granddad's thing. He had that genuine joy in his eyes when he watched the screen with the animal sounds and Attenborough's voice coming out of it. When I joined him, we celebrated those faraway places. Then I became interested in how animals could teach us about ourselves, about the world, and about the beauty out there. Within the worlds of the screen, I could watch a lion pride feed and defend their young. I learned that bears ate spawning salmon from rushing rivers and scavenged for wild berries in search for insects in rocky rubble. Attenborough told us so much. I would dream of someday seeing the big mountains covered in snow and the glaciers unspoiled. But the more I watched, the more I also had internalized that that freedom on the screen was unreachable for me, and that the wilderness was for other people. I desperately wanted freedom, though. Did he, too? I've had a dream of visiting Alaska and Australia since childhood. I imagine that Attenborough and Granddad have something to do with this dream. I didn't realize what I saw on the nature shows were in part fiction. The voiceovers and carefully curated shots hid the violence beyond the predators capturing prey, the lions chasing and attacking gazelles. I now know about the violence that indigenous people faced on their land in the beautiful places. I thought in beautiful places I thought were free and in the places that I've called home. As I now revisit these memories with Granddad, I hope to undo much of my socialization and the myths like Manifest Destiny or Wilderness Untouched that would later make me chase freedom in wild places. The mistake was believing that the wilderness provided an escape for us, that somehow getting away would rid our minds and bodies of the oppression that I could so clearly see and feel even as a child. Still in these moments with Granddad, I can remember that there were more than what I saw around me on the West Side, deeper connections and wilder possibilities. Now, though, I see through the fiction and I know better. So Attenborough's voice has faded into the background in my memories. I'm trading in Attenborough's voice for Granddad's. I remember my time with him as I try to find my own way to freedom. This is what we ate down south. Or now you might think this looks funny to you, but it's good, try it, Granddad would say. My food memories with Granddad take me to places. We'd eat Southern cuisine that I hadn't eaten with Ma and Dad. Saltines with sardines, pickled pig feet, hog head cheese, liver cheese, fish heads. See, the food was just a door to one of Granddad's stories. I would watch Granddad get lost in these times, time traveling by taste. I joined him there. He held control over what he shared. It was only the happier times, and I'm okay with that. Originally from Yazoo County, Mississippi, he was part of the Great Migration like Grandma. He had that joy when he remembered his times there, or maybe he chose to remember the happier times. He honored traditions of his past with food, and he was intentional, making sure I knew these ways. The question that I've encountered from environmentalists is how to get Black people into nature, or how to get us to care about the environment. The assumption of that question is that their need be convincing and excludes forced migrations, land theft, and enslavement. Through writing, I want to appreciate the lens that Granddad and Grandma took to maintain their connections to their Southern culture, even after their migrations. Grandma's thing was gardening. Granddad loved fish. I never saw him go fishing, but he ate fish all the time. Fish would be the dish while he drank Old Milwaukee with his buddies in the backyard and alley behind our house, catfish, perch, buffalo, and other varieties. Going to the fish market on Chicago Avenue was as close as I got to live freshwater fish in our neighborhood. Granddad could have just went to a restaurant to get fish, and he did that too, but he stayed at the fish market. And we often went together. The fishy smell would greet us. I'd see catfish swimming in the small metal tanks filled with water, and Granddad would point to a specific fish to take home. The fish he chose would then be plucked from the tank and placed on a counter, still flopping and fighting for its freedom. The clerk would pull out a big, thick club, striking the catfish, to turn flop silent. And typically, we take it home for Grandma to cover it in cornmeal, fill the skillet with lard, and fry it up. I never thought about the gutting part until Granddad showed me the process. I want to teach you how to gut a fish, Granddad said, that time we turned the kitchen into a fish slaughterhouse. That one summer day is so vivid in my memory. The fish was wrapped in white paper, the paper that corner stores use for cold cuts, American cheese slices, and hoghead cheese. Unwrapped, the fish eyes stared back up at me, and fishy perfume took over Grandma's kitchen. The kitchen smelled like Lake Michigan and swimming in its waters as dead fish floated around me. It smelled like lakefront nights as winds rocked sailboats and caressed my neck when I stared across the lake into the endless, dark blue sky. Granddad showed me that the knife was for cutting and removing the flaky scales from the fish corpse. Removing the scales was like removing burnt from overdone toast. The fish armor scattered across the Chicago Sun-Times newspaper that covered the table. When Granddad prompted, I enjoyed cutting through the fish flesh. I took the sharp knife, mimicking him, chopping off the fish head, digging the knife in a straight line down the fish belly as red and yellow gook oozed onto my hands in the newspaper. Put my hands inside of the fish, removing the guts the way he showed me. Gutting the fish was exciting. Knowing my food, even violently, has since become an aspiration for me. I often think about how unnatural getting meats and produce packaged so neatly from the grocery store is. I enjoy watching hunters on nature shows gutting their kill and appreciating the animal whose life feeds them. I long for a time I have opportunities to take part in my own food consumption through gardening and hunting. I think about how Granddad has such a connection with his foods and how he went extra miles to enjoy some of the food ways that were harder to enjoy once he migrated north. I mourn food intimacy. I want to know where my food comes from, to be connected to the rituals with my ancestors, and to acknowledge the sacrifices of beings that give their life for my freedom. We have learned to take so many lives for granted without acknowledging the sacrifices. Thank you. Okay, so for some poetry, no fish guts. Change it up here. All right, so this is in the anthology. And this is, I wrote this in Mount Baker, Snoqualmie National Forest, home of the Coast Salish peoples. And yeah. Raindrops fall to the tempo of snoring, wayward like hummingbirds in flight, swift in clusters, 2, 3, 1, then none. Sun wrestles with clouds, shining rays of light that vanish in and out like scattered showers and drizzle. The forest is silent but for varied thrush songs, burnt boot creek, and soft wind. In chorus, the backup to the rain, the forest soloist of the day. To be out in it is acceptance, a willingness to be amused for what falls. The imminence of change, at the mercy of its pace. Like the grandfather tree, you are a marker and landing place as the skies journey to find the ground. Right. This next poem is also in the anthology. It's called Memory Riffing. It's a bop off of Michael Weaver, a blues form that I like to write in. My memories uncover the deep on road trips through time, hopes in reverse on stolen land, Choctaw and Ogakspa, ancestral homes. I thought I knew. I hear lava blues on concrete from seduction zones, narratives colliding, friction and heat breaking through, spilling over from my truths cooling, hardening on impermeable surfaces I cover with soil. I thought I knew. I fill in the holes with memories on trusted lands, journeys across the geography of my memoryscape, stretching connection on properties I struggle to remember as home. I thought I knew. And then this last one is a poem. It's not in the anthology, but it's a poem that I want to read. And it's called Wounded, and it'll be the last poem that I share. I'm wounded, the bed for blood. I'm the tired eyes drooping down to dusk. I ain't seen it, no sunshine where heat reigns, asphalt greed waves, seashore plastic asthmatic zone freeways, Illmatic certified gold, bars, ill, so close to the edge, matic capable of remix. For dope means good, black turn hope to green, old growth redwood. Flip it, end, reverse it. Your message greenwashed like the politicians rehearsed it. My elbows ashy from catching fire. on gun barrels and mass shootings where anxiety dreams perspire, where voting rights expire. I'm wounded, but alive. I'm wary, not to survive. Thank you.
Well, Rashina, you've given us a huge surprise with that reading of that prose. That's amazing. Thank you so much. That's just wonderful. And thank you to the cohort, to folks reading today, for encouraging you to read and share that piece. I'm so glad you did. And of course, for your poems that you read. And of course, there's more in the anthology, and I'll also say, please check out the conversations that the podcasts that are to come, because each one of those conversations meandered in very, very different ways, and I learned from everyone, of course. That's kind of a motto. I learn something new every day, and I do believe that happens to me. I learn something new every day. But in my conversations with Rashina, it was really, I learned. I learned from your experience of activism, and I learned from you sharing with me your stories of your grandparents and your family migrating north. And that will, of course, has been captured in those conversations, so I invite you to tune in and listen to them. And before we move on to our last reader of the night, the person who will close us out, I'd love to hear another round of applause for Rashina. Thank you. I can't believe we're at the end. Maya Marino is a daughter of a Mexican immigrant father. Maya began writing in 6th grade, and back then she held on to her writing. Writing was a private affair, just for her. Now, Maya states, quote, I write for my father who did not get to finish school past the 6th grade. I write for and to women who are not allowed to speak or have a voice, and for two children who are struggling to be freed of an abusive home. Maya's writing is testimony to her persistence in the value of her own voice, her cultural and linguistic traditions. It is a testament to her resilience to defy all those who told her as a young aspiring writer that she did not fit in, that her form of expression was lacking. Maya writes, I now know these feelings are not unique to me, and adds, I write as my act of resistance and persistence toward the world I want to see and live in. We are lucky to have Maya's voice, acumen, and her commitment to community in this year's anthology, and to have her close tonight's program. And before I call you up, Maya, I want to thank you for that commitment to community and what you have brought to the entire cohort. Maya, and it's a little secret that we'll do on the last reading, so you have to come for the next 2 readings. But Maya was really centered community and building relationships with each other, and that is the way that Maya walks through the world. And so I thank you for your gift here with us for this writer's cohort. And now with that, let us give a warm welcome to Maya Marino.
Whew, it's so beautiful to be here. All right. So I have 3 pieces to share. 2 are from the anthology. As a poetic therapist, finding ways in which the natural world partners in our attempts at healing and in being in relationship, my work explores systemic contracts or agreements we have with those in our families, as well as other societal systems. I look at intergenerational legacies and alliances passed down, along with cultural components and language, all as pathways to healing. So I usually start readings with an ancestral poem to begin in that way. So this is for my Nana Isabella, Red Painted Woman. Red painted woman, I hear you calling, calling from the edge of the rusted earth where you wait. Wait for the rain's waters to fill your bowl. Wait for the dust to be clean from the soles of your feet. Restless, you wander the Sonoran desert as you scatter your seed, eager to feed the life you came from. Starved to find the resting place you call home. Red painted woman, I hear the songs you whisper through my hair. I hear the rattle of your beat in the desert's deep valley. I am here now, sit. Empty your bowl. Let me wash the soles of your feet. It is time to sleep now. It is time to sleep. This second piece is in the anthology, and it's a haibun, and I call it a cascading haibun. So haibuns, they have concise prose followed by a haiku. And in this, there are sensitive topics such as racism, suicidal thoughts, and childhood sexual abuse, as 3 members of a family endure transformations at the age of 12. Family fractal. The monarch butterflies who make their home in Oaxaca, Mexico, know their roles, their place in the cycle of their life and in the cycle of their community's resonance. They follow the same path year after year, feeding on milkweed, collaborating in their shared destiny. Our family on my father's side have energetic signatures we follow as well, and one of those is the cycle of 12. We, just like the butterflies, are inhabited by a murmuration of change every 12 years, never to be the same. Clouds, trees, coastlines, we, the waters that carry us, molecules reborn. When I was 12, my parents divorced, and I was given my first journal. My life as a writer began then. I remember a line from one of my poems. Life is really funny. It has its ups and downs. It reminds me of a bunny hopping all around. Really captured what that year felt like to me. Leaving my papi in LA was more ache than words, but Mom made it seem like we were on an adventure, my 3 brothers and I, driving 24 hours, 1,152 miles from Compton, California to Seattle, Washington, ready to live with a new stepdad. It was crazy, like we barely left our neighborhood crazy, and here we were moving up to Washington State. The light was different, like I had to wear sunglasses bright because of the trees and glistening waters. In my new school, there was this girl, 6th grade Patricia, who touched and stretched my skin one day, preguntándome, "Why are you brown?" Scrunching her face, poking at me like I was some bug to look at. I stopped, stared, had no answer for her, wondering how she could be real, wondering how someone could never have seen a brown person. I shook my head and shrugged, saying, Porque Dios me hizo así, because God made me this way, and walked away. After that, I felt dirty, sucio, different in my skin, incómodo, disposable. My two brothers and I already felt strange being 3 of 6 students of color in an entire K through 8 school, like one of those cats with an extra finger. Mom, are we in America now? I asked when I got home. She rolled her eyes as she folded the laundry. ¿Qué? You know the difference, mija. Yeah, it sure is different here. They look at us like we're aliens, some strange creatures to poke at. I just don't like that. It just feels like not us. California is in America too, mija. Los Angeles is in America. We were just surrounded by nuestro gente y lengua. Y Mexico, mama. I just always thought California was a part of... It was, mija, a long time ago. But I know, I just had no idea it would all be so different. Like, there were people that had never seen brown people. Just do your best, mija. It's a good school. Altered views, Douglas fir, a light-skewed maple transcriber, hemlock dreams, red alder. My papi and his family are from Sonora, Nogales, Mexico. When he was 12, his father left, so he dropped out of the 6th grade to work, support his mama, 2 sisters, and brother. He did not have the luxury of making plans with friends on the weekends or what sports to play next. He had to figure out how to feed his family. When he was 16, his 12-year-old sister, my favorite Thea, got lupus. Bobby stopped talking and started chewing on his toothpick. This was before he started smoking, they told me. Poppy said she had been okay until her hair fell out, her skin became blotchy, and she was afraid to be around other people because they looked at her different, like she was different. To me, she was the brightest star I'd ever seen. She gave out candy to the neighborhood kids from the back door of Nana's house. She found work for them to do so she could pay them. She loved to smile, so the top half of the moon that lived in her eyes looked down at you. We both liked serving and observing others. And although you couldn't see my scarred skin, the darkness in her eyes saw through me. I felt held and known by her. She taught me joy and grace were gifts given on the other side of hard things. Silent gifts, vibrant eyes, dandelions grow in sidewalks. Light unifies darkness. I tried hard to adjust. School was easy, but we had to leave 10 minutes early every day to catch the city bus back home. It was embarrassing. I tried to pass it off as cool or interesting. I think I've done that most of my life just to get through things, like Mount St. Helens erupting. I had no idea about volcanoes. We grew up with earthquakes in LA where my bed rolled across the floor in the middle of the night, always in the middle of the night. So when Mount St. Helens erupted during the school day, some of my classmates cried. I think I stopped breathing. I had no idea what was happening. We had to stay inside because it was gray and cloudy, and they said it was too dangerous to breathe. I remember how hard it was to see when my mom drove us home. She picked us up that day. The next day, schools were closed and dust was all over the road, people wearing masks. It felt like the end of the world. Like in those movies, dust everywhere, no one can see, but we're all waiting to be eaten by some strange monster. Like things would never be the same again. The mountain never was. Its top blew off and the natural world around it closed off for healing. These things seemed to bring us closer together as we forgot ourselves. We helped each other feel better. We remembered how to treat one another. Explosions, poisons dispersed, unearthed the stream of light in kindness here. Then came the eruption inside my belly. The darkness befronted me in the first year of my life because of the unseen bruises under my skirts. By the age of 4, I remember kneeling at my bedside, begging my God to be taken, wondering why I had to stay. I was shown I would be a writer and healer one day and help other people. I could help other people if I lived through this day. So when I had a stomachache for the entire 6th grade school day, my mom drove me to the ER. They took 7 hours of tests and couldn't find anything, so they sent me home. I awoke in the middle of the night with 104 degrees fever and was rushed back to the hospital into emergency surgery. They found a ruptured appendix that had sent poison all throughout my body, filling up one lung and half filling the other. The nurse told me, "Darling, you're lucky to be alive. If we'd waited another 10 minutes, you could have died." Guilt. I felt weighted and flooded by guilt, thinking it was my fault for all the wishing I had done. My mom later told me La Virgen de Guadalupe had saved me. I prayed to her that if she saved you, I would offer you to her for the rest of your life. Thanks, Mom. I smiled and grumbled. La Virgen had appeared to my uncle on his deathbed a month before he was going to die and healed him. To us, it was a miracle. She was a miracle. And now I was somehow taken into her service for the rest of my life, smelling the scent of roses in places where there were none, tilting my ear a little closer, listening in to the communication, following the path of 12-year cycles. Eruptive bursts redeemed, threaded legacy seemed, roses love's design. My last piece is a duplex. It's a form created by poet Jericho Brown that combines the blues, the sonnet, and the ghazal. And I wrote this in dedication to all the little ones and to our ancestors. Principle of parsimony. What to say to the 12, 7, 4-year-olds? You are ours to behold, cherish, and learn with. Behold your growth like the seasons we turn with. Your mind warms the stories carried and burdened. Although some stories burn, still carrying ash. Hold open your hand, for the winds hold fast. The winds carry ancestors' songs and sorrow. Catch their sweet love and strength for your morrow. Strengthen your gait, smile, and connections. Be mindful of your guided inflections. Synchronous inflections mind your life. Create a new song. Let it stream your light. Following the tease of your heart-mind's quiver, we say, 12, 7, 4-year-olds, share your river. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Maya, for your loving kindness, for your words, for that beautiful last piece, which is, please read it. It is a technical feat. So take a look at it. Yeah, and thank you for just your beautiful presence. I have much gratitude for you. Let's give her another round, yeah? I want to close with one. There's nothing like hearing the authors read their own work, as you well know. There's nothing like it. So I have read these pieces, and they sounded, as I heard you tonight, they were different pieces than the ones I had read myself. So it was a wonderful gift to hear this writing in your own voices. Maya, I really loved the way you read those haikus tonight or sung them. One that stood out to me is clouds, trees, coastlines, we, the waters that carry us, molecules reborn. So thank you for that. We have 2 more readings like this, one next Friday and the one Friday after that, and they will be as wonderful as tonight's, I guarantee it. I wanted to say that I have been affiliated with Jack Straw since I was a Jack Straw writer. I've taught in the schools for Jack Straw, mostly with Raul. Is Raul still here? Oh, he left. Okay. So Raul has also taught Spanish in public schools, in Seattle public schools, as have I for Jack Straw, and I serve on the board. And people have heard me say this because I say it all the time. Jack Straw is a little engine that could. I do not know of another nonprofit in the Seattle area that does as much so well, not only just in writing, as we're hearing here, and writing for adults, the writing series of which we are part, but also for children in schools, both in Spanish and in English, and the musicians that come here and record, and the gallery at the front that has always really interesting and exciting exhibits. It's just amazing the breadth of work that gets done. Also work with children who are visually impaired, that I don't know anybody else who is doing that in Seattle. So I'm saying all this to, when you get a chance and feel inspired by what you've heard and all the programs that happen here, please do go and click in that donate button, which you will find in our Jack Straw website, because it goes a long way. It is really amazing, all the love and expertise of the people who work here to make programs like this possible. So I leave you with that. I hopefully inspired from all the wonderful writing that you have heard. And please buy anthologies. They're amazing. Mine is here. I met it for the first time today when I walked in, so I'm very happy with my copy. And yeah, come back next Friday and join us for the second round of the May reading series. Thank you so much. Oh, and there's snacks at the front, so you could mingle with the writers and get them to sign your anthologies. And let's have some community time.